Hello and welcome to Dialogue. Despite the FBI raided his Mar-a-Lago estate over a week ago, former U.S. President Donald Trump has not been charged with any wrongdoing, and is yet to be clear if any specific charges will be launched against him due to the investigation. But how serious will the legal consequences be if Trump is charged? Would it terminate Trump's attempt for a second run for U.S. president? And what's the political impact of the unprecedented surge of a former president? To discuss these issues and more, I'm glad to be joined by Anna Tangen, current affairs commentator, Joanne Chen, intercultural critic and author, and Peter Kuznick, professor of history at American University. That's our topic. I'm Xu Qinduo. Well, welcome to the show. I will start with Joanne. Despite all the talk, despite all the investigation, there's no specific charges ever launched against Trump or about what he has done wrong, right?
Right. At this very moment, the investigation is focused on documents, but I'm afraid this is not a document issue. It is a total attack on American democracy. And at this very moment, President Trump is asking for the affidavit to be shared with, which was denied. So the process is still ongoing. But most importantly, this issue should really concern every American. If we are experiencing infighting, this to me is infighting between Democrats and Republicans. They're supposed to work together to forge a force to face their competitors or if not enemies around the world. So American people should feel very concerned and I personally feel assaulted.
Okay. Obviously, Joanne, Anna thinks this is about a political, fight inside the U.S. Democrats, Republicans. But she does mention about this affidavit. Tell us what is it? Why there's the call for the release of it, or the efforts against it?
Okay. So I agree with Joanne. Americans should be very, very concerned, but not for the reasons she's put out. I think those are the Trump talk points. Basically, there's no person above the law, and that includes Donald Trump. He took home with him classified documents. They were not declassified in the manner that is prescribed, and he has them, and no one knows exactly why. He's put out a number of things. A, they were somehow planted. B, their homework. He was just taking to look it over. And C, I mean, he really says, well, I declassified them so I can do what I want with them. Well, that goes against the law. And, he's facing some very, very serious charges. These are all under what's called Title 18, which is the U.S. Code. It's the first one is espionage, obviously very, very serious. Second, destruction of or retention of documents that you're not supposed to keep. And the third one is interesting, it's obstruction. That means that you attempt to hide documents that could in fact obstruct an ongoing investigation of you. So this is very, very serious. In terms of the affidavit, clearly the Trump playbook is find out who said it and try to discredit them. He's done that over and over again, and he will do it again if he's able to get the author.
Okay, about the witnesses. So Peter, I'd like you to tell us how serious is the investigation or the potential charges, itself, or about, or maybe to Trump?
It's potentially very, very serious. I mean, this is not some minor thing. Dealing with classified materials in such a reckless way is a very serious offense in the United States. If he were anybody other than Donald Trump, they probably would have indicted him already on this. We see what happened with Ed Snowden. We see what happened with Julian Assange for telling the truth about either American war crimes or American surveillance. These are taken very, very seriously. And in the case of Donald Trump, he likes to think that he's above the law. But in the United States, nobody is above the law, at least nobody is supposed to be above the law. And the fact that they are dealing with this, and this is only one of several scandals that we're going to talk about today. So the noose is closing in on Donald Trump right now. He's having a very difficult time getting competent lawyers to represent him. And the evidence is piling up about his own criminal behavior.
Well, Joanne, here's a question. Maybe, some people would say it's about a political persecution against the former president. Some others say this is a purely legal issue. But then there's a question, why did Donald Trump bring the documents home at all? It's classified documents.
According to the news, which I did a little bit research before our topic, that Donald Trump declassified his document and already has been collaborating, revealing his documents. So I believe this is a total political persecution, and I am appalled to see the Democrats, at least the radical one, the extent they can go to just persecute an individual. Imagine how many charges they already filed, then they all failed. This time, they're just going to do another one. We're just going to see how it's going to unfold. I think we should not be too excited that this time that the Democrats would win. And this time, I think truth is always there, and we should just wait and see what would happen. I understand this is a critical crossroad in American democracy, and Donald Trump is possibly about to run 2024. So the radical Democrat need to do its best to take this man down. And American democracy is in danger. And we are at a crossroad. And I'm very disappointed about American politics.
So it's
and the way it goes.
Okay, politics. But again, politics aside, Anna, declassified or classified documents simply moved away before they were declassified. Is there any process, or the president can simply declare?
This is not about documents.
It's declassified, so I can take home?
Yes, I mean, the procedure for declassifying a document is very simple. The president can say he wishes to declassify something, a memo is created. It is then, he has to sign it. It is then sent to the heads of the departments who would be involved for their input on it. What would be the ramifications? Are you giving away means and methods? Thereafter, as soon as they have signed off and the president has signed off again, then what happens is they take a stamp, a physical stamp, and say declassified. Now, none of the folders that he had said that. Now, one of his lieutenants, Mr. Page, has said that, oh yeah, I was there when he said declassified. Well, that's a very strange thing, because these documents apparently covered a vast area of different subjects. Is he saying that he was in the room when 15 boxes of documents and Trump waved his hand and said declassified, as if this was a Harry Potter movie? No, that's not the way it works. Every legal expert in Washington has debunked that. The fact that he's using these flimsy excuses tells you a lot about how desperate he is. He's trying to throw things against the wall and see what sticks in terms of what he can sell to people like Joanne who believe in him.
Peter, even those documents were declassified. Is it common for the president to, after they finish the term, and take some of the documents home as memo, as a, I don't know, as a gift or as something to remember?
No, that is totally irregular. Those belong to the National Archives. Those are not Trump's personal property. He does not have the right or the jurisdiction to remove those documents. So even the ones that aren't classified, but what we know is that many of these were classified top secret. They were SCI. These are some of the highest levels of classification. And one of the concerns is that some of these documents dealt with nuclear issues. So these are the documents that the country's quote unquote enemies would probably love to get their hands on. And the fact that Trump not only would take them, but would then lie about having them. You have to remember, this is a months-long process that's been going on. And 15 boxes were returned in January, but now Trump kept many, many more boxes and many more classified documents. And his lawyers sent a letter in June saying he didn't have any more classified documents. So they've lied about this. We know about this through information that's been given to the FBI and surveillance cameras. So Trump's behavior throughout this process has been very, very questionable and probably illegal. And I think there are going to be serious consequences.
But Peter, if let's assume Trump tried to benefit from those documents or the secret about the nuclear weapons, but then it's 18 months on. Anything happened?
Anything happened that we know of? No. I know not. We don't have any information that we don't even know what he did with these. We don't even know why he wanted these. We don't know if he was planning to sell them or he just had a fond attachment to them or he was going to disclose them in some way. We don't know why he took these documents, but we do know that regardless of his motive, it was absolutely illegal to do so.
Okay, it's a purely, again, technical issue, legal matter. But then, Anna, you have to, if you listen to the supporters of Trump, I think they have a point probably. They say, what about Hillary Clinton, the mishandling of those emails with her own private computer? Or about Hunter Biden? There's no FBI investigation.
Yes, Clinton's emails, handling emails was in fact wrong. But that's not the same thing as taking nuclear files home with you. It would have been nice to have those emails, to have a clear picture of what she was doing, how she was mixing politics and perhaps other things. So at this juncture, saying that Hillary Clinton does it does not make it not a crime. If you cheat on your taxes, I can't say, well, I cheat on my taxes because you did. This is the kind of infantile response that you would expect from Donald Trump. He said, what aboutism? It's always not what I have done, but what about these other guys? Hunter Biden was not the president of the United States. They have his laptop. There is going to be an investigation, and that will wind to a close. But that does not excuse or obfuscate his culpability, any of this. In terms of whether he can run for president, yes, he can. It's interesting. One of the things that he violated or could have violated, one of the things that it specifies is you cannot run or be an officer of the United States. But the Constitution is the document of weight, and it says there are no prohibitions against a president having a felony record or anything like that. It just specifies age, and that he's a natural-born citizen, so he would qualify.
Yeah, we'll come back to that, 2024 thing, obviously. But Joanne, seems this investigation, the FBI raid, obviously animated the base of Trump. Many people would see that's a political persecution against the former president. For a lot of issues, it's not. Yes, what's happening is important, but sometimes more important about the perception. If people see that as political persecution, whether it is true or not, and the people will fight for him, probably. But at the same time, you do see for the Democrats supporters, they would say, see, this is evidence of Trump being probably committed some crime. I wonder, what do you make of that?
Well, I respect our two panelists' view, but these are all speculations. It's not proved yet. So do not really, prejudge. Those judgments are guided by a certain ideology that's probably not fair at this very moment. I think I just want to say there is a certain amount of savages in our civilization right now, American at a crossroad. And if let's just say this is an issue of document, you could have done that civilized way, and you don't have to raid a home. If you raid a home, and that's really, unfair, it's assault. I really believe this mechanism of attacking, it really have to be go away in a civilized society. Two parties can have different point of view, but Trump has all kinds of lawyers could handle your demand for documents. You don't have to attack their home while they're away. This kind of behavior does not belong to 21st century. Regardless, you're Democrat or Republican, do you want your home to be raided? If you don't want your home to be raided, then you have to think this behavior is not what they do, is how they did it. It's totally illegal, and it is utterly just appalling. And we are, and I mean, as Trump supporter, or even though you're not Trump supporter, you should feel very offended, and it is just utterly unbelievable.
But Joanne, here's a question. You know, the Department of the prosecutor, let's say the FBI. You know, in the U.S., there's independence of law. You know, when you say it's a political persecution, it's targeting former President Trump, you mean probably that's a decision made by the White House, by the Biden government. But the Biden government had made it clear they were not aware of that. They were not following that.
I never said it's Biden. Is the AG, okay? The Garland really issued this affidavit, right? And then he's yet to tell the American people what he did. You know, they're so arrogant right now. They just can say, oh, it's top secret, so therefore everybody should calm down. You know what? You weaponize American legal system. America is no longer respected by the world. I think China will take over America one day if American keep on its infighting. So, you know, you're supposed to work with the world, but you cannot do this if you internally are tearing yourself apart. American people see this very clearly. Democrats or Republican, we are all red-blooded human. We don't want to be assaulted. Civilization needs to be kept. This is my point of view. Regardless of the content, you don't assault people. I believe these two, my two panelists agree with me on being civilized.
And you want to respond?
Yes. First off, Joanne, he has the papers. There's no question about that. They are top secret. They were not declassified. Making this false equivalency that Donald Trump taking home top secret papers, well, if I, as a regular citizen, had access to top secret papers and I took them home, yes, I would be prosecuted. And he's been given much, much leeway in terms of, quote, assaulting him, because it could have been handled nicely. Well, they tried that. Remember, his lawyer signed off and said, we have no more documents. So that the nice way was tried. They tried to get the records from him. He lied through his lawyers, and then they were forced to go in and get top secret information from him. So, you know, all of this crying about how it should be civilized,
I think
perhaps
it's
he should have been civilized. Yes,
now.
You can say that. But, you know, how about the people who have died because he's encouraged them to go attack the FBI offices by calling into question their legitimacy?
Yes,
is that civilized?
Okay, since Anna mentioned about this impact, let's say, you know, if you
true.
talk about the impact, you know, we will touch upon, and also let's take a look at the future, you know, legacy of Trump. You know, he still wields considerable influence, as shown in the latest election result in the Wyoming state. Lisa Cheney, obviously, you know, she's not in good relationship, let's say, with Trump, and the candidate against Lisa Cheney and endorsed by Trump won big in that election. So if that election is a test, you know, what does it indicate? What does it say about the Republican Party and also the nation?
Let me first, before I answer that, mention that Joanne's story is way off. This was not even a raid. They had a search warrant. This was a legal procedure. This was not an assault on Donald Trump or an assault on the rule of law.
No, it's not. Tongan, you should just keep talking. Don't mention my name.
So far as the election, Trump still has a stranglehold on the Republican Party. There is no question. Trump supporters sound a lot like Joanne, whose name I'm happy to mention. And they are very, very extreme in their views.
I think you should leave my name.
And don't believe in American democracy. They don't believe in the sanctity of elections. And they're an extreme element in the United States. We've had extreme elements in our past. We've had white supremacist movements in our past. This is not the first white supremacist movement. But the fact that they've taken over one of the two major American political parties is very, very concerning. Now Trump's popularity is not very high. In fact, in the polling, the only person who Joseph Biden beats in a head-on electoral contest is Donald Trump. So, but Trump does have a lot of support still within the Republican Party, and so that is very alarming to those of us who do believe in American democracy.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joanne, Trump is currently the subject of several investigations. In addition to this removal of official records, such as his role in the Capitol Hill insurrection last year and his business dealings. What do you think about the chances of Trump being barred from, running again for 2024, the presidential election?
I believe Donald Trump will run again. American people will support him, and the chances of him being persecuted, to me, is very small. But there is a chance, because as you see, the elections of the last election was being stolen. That we believe that's the case. Again, there is a possibilities. We are entering a dark age, you would not believe, on 21st century. So it is a dark time. The evil force is in power, so therefore anything can happen. But I still have faith in goodness. I still have faith that the American democracy can be restored. Right now it's injured, is castrated by radicals, and I really don't want to fight between parties. We really need to unite as one. If there's one single message, Republican and Democrats should join as one. You have more competitions around the world to take care of. So we have to work together.
Well, again, as we mentioned earlier,
Agree?
Joanne, like the documents, President probably don't take the documents in particular, documents marked with
the
top
document
secret home.
It's not about the document, of course. Let's just say if it's a document. So, okay, so if it's a document, so let's start with the first document, affidavit. Reveal it to us. Let's see what your mechanism. How do you start with the search warrant? Why it is done in such a way? What are you specifically looking? In terms of the speculation of having nuclear-related documents, these are speculation only. It's yet to be proved. So my panelists should not be too overjoyed at this moment. No one should be overjoyed at this moment. We should be deeply concerned, seeing the big picture. We should join hands, really work for American democracy. Do not fight against each other. This is so silly. I think our competitors is laughing at us. I really had enough of this.
Well, it's a domestic issue currently, obviously, and the legal issue for now. Of course, there's no specific charge against Trump yet for what particularly he has done wrong. But what do you think about the chances? Probably, despite whatever happened, he will continue. To run for the 2024.
Well, given the scenario and his support within the
Yes,
Republican ranks,
he will.
it's quite possible that he could run for the office. But given what's happened, he has 10 very serious cases against him, everything from his business dealings to what happened during the insurrection, as you mentioned. It's just too much. Independent voters, even though they may be very, very disappointed with the Biden administration, lack of ability to handle the inflation, it's doubtful that they will turn to Donald Trump as a beacon of solidarity. I mean, I cannot believe that my colleague from New York is talking about civilized behavior. This is the man who used to elbow other heads of state in an attempt to get to the center of room, who would call women fat and ugly, who would use all sorts of derogatory tones, words towards other people. The last person on earth that we should be saying, oh, let's be civilized. He's never been civilized, never will be.
Well, Peter, if you look at the impact further, what about the short-term impact? Probably we won't have any specific outcome of the investigation or of the charges, but the midterm, elections are upcoming in November. Will this investigation or future charges have any impact on that?
I think it'll have a minimal impact. Trump is under assault on many, many fronts right now. The January 6th committee is going to be holding additional hearings. What's happening in Georgia is very concerning. Rudy Giuliani is set to testify now. You have to remember that back on January 2nd, Trump personally called up the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and said, I need 11,700 more votes in Georgia. Can you find them for me? That there is so much election fraud that Giuliani and Trump and the associates were involved in, that again is what's happening is that many people who are independents, many women in the suburbs who were previously ambivalent are turning against Trump. And not only because of Trump's behavior, but also because the Republican Party has become so extreme. The overwhelming majority of Republican nominees for office are like Joanne. They're election deniers. Joanne said that the election was stolen. Well, that's what many of these people believe, even though they've gone to court more than 60 times. And the judges, even the Trump-appointed judges, have found no evidence whatsoever of election fraud in any significant way. They keep on making these charges. Mm-hmm. So I think that Trump's behavior and the behavior of the Republican Party are going to undermine their electoral chances. And what should have been for them a terrific election in 2022 and in 2024 is actually not looking nearly as promising given their extreme views and unconscionable behavior.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joanne, if you look at for example, social media, there's an increase in talk about the possibility of violence or even civil war due to the investigation by the FBI on Trump. People would see most of the, tough talk, or people sometimes would say that's a threat, come from the supporters of Trump, right?
Well, I would like to point out that if DOJ issue this warrant, or if they conduct a raid, if they behave in such a way, they become very violent, right? If you do this, I think it's almost set an example for the ordinary people that they can take their weapons to the streets, and it is possible that the society would be even more unstable. And I hope that shouldn't happen that way. But I think this incident of raiding, this incident of breaking into people's house without a really solidified, justified kind of legal reason, this set a perfect example for those who are inclined to employ violence to resolve an issue. And I even feel they're not interested in resolve in any issue. They grab the power and they control the scenario and they manipulate the public view. And the public should not be manipulated. Anyone who has a conscience should be clear to see what's the current dangerous predicament American society is facing. So I really wish Trump would survive this, which I believe he will. He is such a hero. I know for Democrats, he's an anti-hero. Regardless of which side you see him, he is a survivor, and he will ultimately win. Temporarily, he had his setback, but I think truth will speak on its own. It's just a matter of time. Okay. All the voters there, hang there. Republican and
15 seconds, and
okay.
Democrats.
Civil war is exaggerated.
So you heard my colleague talk about from everyone should love each other and be civilized to talking about how violence could be justified. All right, the fact is Donald Trump had the papers. There's no question about that. And he is in deep, deep trouble, as Peter has said.
Well, on that note, we conclude today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also find us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.